Hey guys, LPGWV Kevin here, and this is my wife Heather. We recently got back from the Pokemon Go Community Day, which was the main Chikorita event. So we've got some game footage from that to show you guys and talk about. And if you're interested, hop in the chat and ask any questions or let us know how your Community Day went, and we'll go ahead and get that started. So our day started out around 2 o'clock. And so this was the first Chikorita of the day. So I hadn't yet got a chance to put in all the buffs, eggs and Stardust and all of that, but was pretty pleased to get started.
Probably in hindsight should have started with the egg and Stardust boosters, because right away we could tell that that was a serious advantage, popping like 1200 XP for just one Chikorita. If you did like an excellent throw, curveball, whatnot, all the perks.
Right, so in addition to being Chikorita Day, there was a 3 times experience bonus for caught Pokemon. So if you were using an egg, you actually got a 6 times multiplier. So if you had the egg and you threw an excellent curveball, she said, you could end up with 1200 XP for a single caught Pokemon.
Which is not always very common unless you're at a special event such as Community Day. Most of your catches are going to be 600 XP or less unless it's a 7-day special. You know, on the 7th day you get extra perks that you might not otherwise.
And the 600 is even kind of rare. You might normally end up with something like, 120, 160.
Yeah, that's your average. I'm just chilling here, let me throw a ball at a random Pokemon.
So I had a research task pop up on the bottom there that you may have seen. I'm also in the middle of the Celebi quest for this day, and there's a surprise towards the end. I was actually able to finish that quest. So,
spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry, spoiler alert. And we'll take a short break from the Chikorita Day to check out Celebi.
I watched him from afar, standing way back behind the group, finishing this task, but I was still busy catching them shinies, so I left him to his own devices to catch that.
I did have a software error, and so I was actually worried that I lost it. And so the group had moved on, and I was standing there trying to figure that out. So that was a little bit stress-inducing. This might be 5 or 6 Chikorita at this point. So the main deal, of course, for these community days is that there's an increased shiny rate. So the shiny rate can be like anywhere around like 1 in 480-ish, I think, is pretty common.
On an average day.
On an average day. So on a community day, that drops down to like 1 in 270, 1 in 280. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I haven't checked in for the people who crunch those numbers. But we both did pretty well. So as we come to those parts in the gameplay, we'll definitely talk about the shinies.
Right now, we're just getting Kevin's initial filters into warming up with Chikoritas.
Yeah.
It's always that third wiggle that really gets you. You're not sure whether it's going to actually catch or not, which is high stakes when you come to raid bosses and such.
We had a really good group today. We actually hopped in on alright, so there were so many Pokemon here today that it was easy to misclick, so I think I clicked on that Venonat about 6 times. But we had a really good group today. We actually joined in with a group that at least I don't, raid with a whole lot, and they organized the whole thing, and it was a Silk Road check-in event, and it was a really good community day, so it was fun to get out there and see people, and actually do the walking around that Pokemon Go is supposed to prompt you to do.
I have to say, though, during the event, it was kind of stressful when there were extra eggs hatching in the background and you're trying to catch all of the Chikorita sprees that you can. Having those eggs hatch and knowing that some of them might be regional Pokemon was a little bit over the top, but of course you're getting extra XP for that, so that's fun anyway.
Yeah, definitely is. That's awesome, Spooky. So you got 2 shiny Chikoritas today.
Yay!
Congratulations. What part of the country are you playing in? And what time was your event? Yeah, we definitely did see the weird Ditto things, and we got some footage of that, and that will appear at the end of the stream as well.
There's quite a few of them. I think I caught something like 20 of those Dittos today. All of them registered as regular, so nothing out of the ordinary for us.
Eastern part or western part, were you playing before us? We were here at 2 p.m. Eastern. We're on the East Coast.
Look at that Nummel.
Yeah, well, gotta finish those research tasks. Ah, nice. Yeah, so we were playing at the same time.
Nice.
We came away with a little bit more than 2. We had pretty good luck this event. I think I ended up with 7 at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. I had 8. My initial thought was to evolve the very first shiny that I got because, you know, I want that frenzy plant. Or is it plant frenzy or frenzy plant?
Yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, I wanted that special move, but it turns out that my first shiny was not a very good Pokemon IV-wise or CP, so it's kind of a bummer, but it's still fun to have those guys.
Yeah, I ended up evolving one of the shinies, but I didn't pay any attention at all to the CP.
There's a shiny!
That's the first shiny of the day. So the pumpkin...
For you?
Yeah, for me. The pumpkin spice Chikorita. And we actually ended up at a Starbucks where we found some more, so that will also be later in the stream.
There's this conspiracy, though. I mean, there were several people that went into the Starbucks, and every single one of them came out with a shiny, so we're thinking that maybe some plot piece was there that, you know, those of us who didn't go in might have missed out on. But
yeah, if Sprint stores can be Pokestops, maybe there really are something to the pumpkin spice Chikoritas. So yeah, I definitely threw an Ultra Ball at that first shiny of the day. I'm pretty sure the shinies have a 100% catch rate, but it didn't matter. I was getting that guy. We've got this good space by the river. So if you're not living in West Virginia, we have this thing called the rail trail system that are old railways that have now become walking paths. So we've got this long stretch of walking path, and there's probably 12 Pokestops scattered across that short bit.
at least. Well, that's pretty cool that you evolved your first decent shiny and it had great IVs. Or at least had decent IVs.
Yeah, I didn't get any shinies with great IVs, but at least I got one.
Yeah. Most of mine, I think, were under 300 CP, and most of the IVs were kind of meh. So 70% or lower, at least. I would say probably 50% and lower. But they're nice to have for the Pokedex.
Spooky, did you make good use of the eggs to get the extra XP? We were definitely milking that for XP today. So I got a good chunk of the way through the second half of level 33. As soon as you start getting those million XP levels, it really slows down. Ah, okay. All right, so Spooky is saying that the shinies raid bosses are the 100% catch rate, and he had a shiny that popped out of the ball. So, okay. All right, thanks for letting us know. I thought it was all the shinies, but now that I think about it, you're definitely right. It's the shiny raid bosses, which was definitely good for the legendary birds day. I think I came home with at least one spicy chicken Moltres.
Yeah, hot chicken.
We were able to stay out for pretty much the whole time, although we peeled off from our group at one point and just kind of poked around town. How many were you able to get, Spooky, totally, in that hour?
I think you said you got 2.
Or
Spooky.
The Chikorita in general. We were able to get a good bunch of candy to work with. Ah, okay. I'm not sure how many total Chikorita I had. It's definitely over 100. I'm pretty sure it's pushing 200, if not more.
So thinking about it in terms of the cost of evolving, I know I evolved at least 4 into Meganium, so that's at least 400 candies. And I know it also takes, 25 to evolve Chikorita into Bayleaf.
Yeah.
So that's at least another 100 candies. So that's at least 500 candies. And I was using Pin-Apps, so hard to exactly narrow that down without doing math, because sometimes math is hard.
Yeah, I was not using Pin-App berries, so I evolved 2 Meganiums, so there's 200, or 200, 300 total, or 250. I still had 100 and some left over. So, that's at least 300, so I probably went through 300 Pokeballs today. 50 to 80. That's pretty good in an hour, especially because the animation can really slow you down on those. There are some of those things where I really wish you had an option to skip some of the animations. If you've seen the thing before, like those Ditto animations today at the end of the day really slowed us down for that, and that was seemed to be a time crunch. They kind of winked out of existence after 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was 30 minutes sharp. As soon as that 30-minute mark was gone, every single one of them was either gone or Suspiciously, other Pokemon had now filtered in the scene, so I don't want to say that those Dittos turned into other Pokemon, but who knows?
Yeah, I haven't counted them either, Spooky, but we're out for all 3 hours and we brought back a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Were you playing with a group or mostly just by yourself? I actually really enjoy the community days. It really kind of helps get you out there and meet some new folks.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We have created several different groups that we've become accustomed with now. Just random strangers deciding to do something together. It's kind of cool.
So I'm pretty sure that was nice. Yeah, it's definitely definitely fun with friends to get that going. So I'm pretty sure I just saw the 38th grass type flit across the research there, so I'm getting pretty close to the Celebi portion of the day. First I wanted to save that and maybe go somewhere some cool or interesting or picturesque and do the photo, but I was not very good at delaying gratification.
Not at all. I had suggested that he wait until after the event so he could optimize his XP and Stardust doing other things, but his patience just said, I can't wait on the Celebi. I'm too excited right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
So that definitely happened. Yeah, this little walkway is good. There's a bunch of stops there. We can head down, and then our group actually turned around and headed back the other way. And we definitely got a little bit of a walk-in today. What do you think your favorite part of the community day was?
Favorite part? Probably, I mean, I'm in it for the shinies, so I like having that easier access to shinies, really. Of course, nobody sees shinies every single time or they wouldn't be super special, but knowing that on Community Day you have such a high rate, it's hard to not be excited about that. Even though then you have a list of things to go through when you're looking for your shinies.
So there's a Farfetch'd. So I made a mistake late yesterday and early today. I had hatched a bunch of eggs and I forgot about it. And then before I could open gifts, we hit a bunch of stops and I picked up a bunch of regular 2, 5, and 10k eggs rather than the 7k eggs that have the special Pokemon. At this point, I already had the Kangaskhan and the Farfetch'd, so it wasn't a huge loss, but...
Have you gotten any mines yet?
I think I hatched one, but we went to Scotland this summer and brought back like a pile of Mr. Mimes, so I really wasn't overly worried about that. But I really wanted to clear out all of these extra eggs today, so I can go back to picking up 7k tomorrow. But basically, I lost 2 entire days of egg walking by forgetting about it and then hitting a bunch of stops.
Oops.
So I'm actually not sure how long that 7k egg event is going on.
It's really unspecified. They said limited time. So who knows whether limited time is until the end of the Mewtwo quest or the Mewtwo raids, or whether that is just until the end of this time, the special time, or end of summer until next Community Day. Who knows?
Yeah, I imagine it's probably going to be over the next month, but I think it's supposed to be pretty short, right?
Well, it is. Limited time seems to be short, but we also didn't get a clear indication of how long the Alolan forms would be in the 7k eggs, so it's kind of hard to tell. It doesn't seem like Niantic has put that on the forefront of announcing when and who gets to know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why they might want to play that close to their vest. The trouble is, I mean, of course, I purchased some incubators to be able to make better use of that, so that probably works out. But I think I'm opening fewer gifts because I'm wanting to make sure that it's the 7k eggs that I'm getting, whereas normally I would just hit my limit each day and move on. I think today is the first day I hit my limit, and that's because I need the stuff for Community Day. So in some ways, I don't know if that's... I'd be interested to see what they think about that once it's over, if they got out from it whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely opening up fewer eggs during that process.
I think my general policy with gifts is to disperse as often as I can, but then to open as I hatch. And then toward the end of the day, if I still have a lot of time left on my eggs, then I'll go ahead and open those for the day, knowing that by the time I hatch those, I'll probably have more eggs in tote. Or, sorry, more gifts in tote to open for eggs.
Yeah, the egg gift economy. I can see why they would want to limit to 10 because you don't want to. It does take up item space. So if you're doing item runs through Pokestop dense areas of town, you may not want to accumulate 20, 30, 50, 100 gifts that you can't give out. Especially if you don't have a pile of friends. Like maybe you only have 4 or 5 or 10 friends, and you're going to be limited to how many times you go back, and suddenly your item queue is just going to slowly fill up. So I mean, I get why the limit is there. I think 10 might be a little bit too low for that, but yeah, balancing that economy is definitely difficult.
Who's that?
It's Hawklord, a fellow Mystic player there. So a funny story, actually. I got browbeaten into being Team Mystic. It ended up being
low-key browbeaten. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Oh, here's the Celebi thing.
Oh, all right, yeah. Let's flip back and we can talk about my collusion with Team Instinct later. So I was waffling about whether or not I wanted to complete the special research in the middle of the day, and
Sorry.
that waffling took about 15 seconds. But I had some app error, so I'm not actually sure if that's going to appear in the video stream or not. But my entire screen went gray, and I ended up having to close everything down, and I was really nervous that I was going to lose something there.
Look at all of those rewards.
Yeah.
Here we are, down by the river.
Oh, there it is. Tiny celery.
I kind of think it looks like an onion.
Maybe garlic.
Yeah.
Kind of onion-like.
Onion family.
So I was kind of frustrated here. So I'm pretty sure I throw like 30 Pokeballs at this thing before I even hit it once. And yeah.
I'm surprised you turned AR on. They say
you have to. On Android, you can't not do it.
Oh, see, on iPhone, it says to turn it on, but it doesn't actually make you turn it on.
So normally on Android, the AR thing is like directly across from my LPG icon at the top there, and it's like a slider, and you can move it, but you can see it's just not there. So if the app wants AR mode, it will get AR mode.
Man, you're having much more difficulty than I did.
Well, like my finger was shaking. I was like, it was like a palsy of a throw.
All the anxiousness. There it is.
Finally,
with
picked it up.
That background. Did you take any pictures with it?
I think what was happening with the grayed out screen was me trying to take pictures.
Oh.
I think that's what was causing.
Ooh, hyper beam.
The
Okay.
issue. So attention, defense, impressed.
Not so bad.
No, not so bad.
And you've got those 23 candies to fluff it up if you want to.
I mean, it's not like I can go out and like get 2 more and do some IV hunting.
No, but listen to this. How many rare candy do you have currently?
I don't know, like a couple.
A couple. More like, what is it, 60? Or is it even more than that, 80 something?
80 something.
80 rare candy this guy's got from raid bosses and has not used it or even been tempted to use.
Well, I had like 70 at one point, and then I dumped those into Magikarp for the Mew quest, and so all of those are the ones that I've gotten since the Mew quest was complete. And I only did that less than a month ago.
Yeah, probably a couple weeks.
I'd quit playing for a while, so I started playing the day Pokemon Go was released when we were still in Dallas, Texas. And when I changed jobs, Pokemon Go was actually, yeah, I'm definitely a hoarder. When I changed jobs, it was actually prohibited on property to play Pokemon Go. It was not like officially prohibited, but it was mentioned in the onboarding interview. They're like, "Who here plays Pokemon Go?" So I'm like sitting there quietly, and then they're like, "Good, we don't want anyone playing on company property." So I quit playing, and just started again last June when we were getting ready to go to Scotland to basically be a mule for a bunch of North American tourists. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I've been playing again since June.
And hoarding rare candies. Me, I'm like an addict with rare candies. As soon as I get them, they go straight back out to either, Mewtwo, Celebi, the legendaries. That's where it goes because I don't want to walk the 20 kilometers to get more candy for those guys or those gals. So I funnel that straight into those Pokemon rather than spending 12 days worth of my life to get walking buddy candy. So these days I'm using my walking buddy like Larvitar or other 1, 3, or 5K Pokemon, so it doesn't seem so bad.
The thing that I can't seem to hold on to is pineapple berries. I end up with 0 pineapple berries or just like a bunch of nanap bananas. I mean, I usually feed those into gyms to other Team Mystic members who might be looking the worse for the wear after battles. But definitely keeping hold of those pineapple berries is hard.
I have noticed that in the last month, or basically since the Gen 1 stuff has been re-released in full force, that pin-apps are going faster and harder to come by. I don't know if that's any coincidence with the silver pin-apps, but it does seem that they are less common than they used to be. Or I guess it could be that I'm just using them more frequently, but those are coming in and leaving much faster these days.
Yeah, Richard, same here. I'm pretty sure in Skyrim I have an entire house that's just like full of extra stuff I'd collected, just like hanging out. So, I mean, you never know if you're going to need it, right? So if it comes across the time that I need like 16 copies of the Lusty Argonian Maid, well, like I'm going to have those. They're on a shelf somewhere.
See, my problem with games like that is that I actually get sidetracked into finding random things to hoard rather than actually going on quests and such. So this candy ability of saving up candies for different Pokemon is totally alluring to me. I will transfer many Pokemon just to have a cache to evolve later.
So, funny story. I had like 80 hours into Skyrim, and I told my little brother Michael, who's also an LPGWV member, that I was just about finished with the game. And he said, "Oh, have you done X?" And I said, "Oh, no. In fact, I don't even know what that is." And he's like, "Well, where are you in the main quest?" And so I told him, and it turned out that like I had gotten so into the Stormcloak Rebellion that I was playing that side quest as if it were the main quest, and that I was actually on like step 2 of the main quest after 80 hours, because that was like the more interesting story to me. So I'm definitely the wander around and do the side quests players. Yeah, Terry, I ended up with 7 shinies at the end of the day, and I think Heather ended up with 8.
8.
So those catch rates are about 50% better during the community days, which is still not great. It's like 1 in 270. We ended up with better than that. Earlier we figured, I think I caught about 300 Pokemon with 7 shinies. So
it's so weird though the way that the shiny system works. For Kevin today, he caught most all of his right on the forefront of the event, or at least from the beginning to halfway through. Whereas for me, I hit 2 in the first hour, I think, and then I didn't see any for probably another hour. Well, anyway, they were trickling in and out throughout the day, whereas Kevin caught his in like a lump sum.
I don't know how it works. It almost seems like there must be like random number generator types, and different players must get assigned to them at some point. And I'm not sure exactly how that works, because I tend to get front-loaded on shinies. She's slow and steady, but then she ends up with more. When we're driving around getting items and stuff, that there's clear differences in what we're acquiring. And I don't know if it's an Android, iPhone issue, or if there's like random number generator subsets.
And just to clarify, when we're collecting items, Passenger is collecting items.
Yeah. Lights, do you have like a more specific question that I can answer? Are you asking about Twitching and Pokemon Go in general, or are you asking about Community Day or shinies?
The question is, how does this work?
Yeah, so I just want to see if I can get a more specific question so I can actually answer whatever the question is. So while we're waiting for lights. So again, this is the Chikorita Community Day here in Morgantown, West Virginia. It was a 3-hour event from 2 to 5 p.m. where Chikorita are literally freaking everywhere. You're tripping over them the entire day. And they've increased shiny rates, increased catch rates, 3 times XP, plus we're using eggs, so we're getting 6 times experience for each caught Pokemon, which definitely helps move you up in to get the level. So the Pokemon Go level system...
You forgot about the special move, too.
Oh, right, there's a special move. So if you evolve a Chikorita during the day, you end up with
Hold on.
Sharknado plant hurricane.
Sharknado plant. You end up with, let me look at my own Meganium, Frenzy plant.
Right. So you get a special move set for that as well. And so the community day pops up different Pokemon for each month, and this one was Celebi.
We ended up at the waterfront area down by the dam. That was a good place for us to start, knowing that there's a cluster of stops you can see in the background there, and gyms, and then we would walk down the rail, that's the rail trail, right? Mm-hmm. To then get some distance on our eggs and hopefully cash in some new Pokemon by the waterfront hotel.
Right, so where we're standing here in the past is actually right around where Waterfront Jeep is. So that's the rail trail all from downtown, from the Westover Bridge to just past Waterfront Jeep. And we didn't set up that. We hopped in on someone else's planned community day organizing, and we just kind of followed along for that.
For most of it. We popped off on our own later to go find some other parks, but for the most part, it was a really smooth event. People checked in on the Sylph Road or added each other as friends and traded a couple Pokemon before the event. And then when 2 o'clock hit, we were all just walking around doing our own thing.
Yeah. So before we started, since we brought back this pile of Mr. Mimes, we were trading for distance medals. So if you get, it's like 10,000, 100,000, and 1,000,000 kilometers of travel distance from where the two Pokemon are caught, you get these awards and medals. So since we went to Scotland over the summer, we definitely had a big pile of that, which helped out.
I'm not sure if they were staying at the Hotel Terry. I think the Pokemon were probably just visiting for a short time, but they could have been checked in their own suite. I don't know. Maybe a shiny suite like that.
Got another pumpkin spice Chikorita there. If they didn't get a group rate, they got gypped because there were a bunch of them.
That's probably not a good term.
That orchard. So the shiny rate was definitely increased. I think this is number 2 for me of the day, maybe 3.
Yeah, I don't recall. So in terms of catching shinies, my first shiny was 4 Chikorita deep. So I hit the shiny chain pretty early, but then it took me a while, a bit longer, to find another. But I think by this point you had probably 2, at least
3 or 4 before you had your second one.
That's true.
But again, she ended up with more at the end of the day.
Barely, just one more.
So we found, so that you can see, I'll back up on the screen, there's this chunk of Pokestops. They're all really close together. And then there was this long stretch where there was nothing, and there definitely were fewer stops. So there were lures on all of those stops, which increased the rates. We were using incense the whole time, which increases.
Clarify some of those terms. So the lures are an item designed specifically for Pokestops, where you get items, but that increases the rate of Pokemon spawning there. So that is a good place to start for an event, because then you can pop lures on all of those stops and increase your chances for 1, just Chikorita, but 2, shiny Chikoritas. And then you were saying you were using what?
Right, so there's another consumable item, which you can usually purchase or get in boxes, and then occasionally you get them at levels, but not out of Pokestops, correct?
That's true.
So you can use an incense, which goes for 30 minutes, and that increases the rate at which wild Pokemon appear.
It's like a fancy perfume for Pokemon.
But it just affects you. So a lure can go on a Pokestop, and that affects anyone in the area. The increased rate is there for everybody. But if you're using both, that stacks. Wolfmania, 2 shinies, and
That's
300
rough.
Chikorita. Wow.
Wow.
All right, so that sounds like about a 1 in 150 rate. So we also caught about 300 Chikorita, but I ended up with 7. She ended up with 8. Were you playing in a group, or were lots of stops, Wolfman, or were you kind of by yourself in a more rural area? Because I know that people living in towns and cities versus rural players have a huge difference, especially on community days. I guess some people are even playing in Walmart parking lots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Community days rather than, I think, the parks that Niantic would prefer us to be walking around in.
Any of your public spaces, so think parking lots, state parks, places where people frequent with their cellular traffic, are going to have more spawns of Pokemon because people are there and using their phones, so the network data knows to sort of place Pokemon there because it's frequented. So if you are out in rural areas, you may not see a lot of the stuff that people in populated places are going to. For instance, a Kroger grocery store parking lot is a great place to find some Pokemon. So pop yourself an egg, do some catching, and then go get your groceries and go home.
Tacoma's good size, so I would think that you definitely have a density of Pokestops there. But yeah, we were talking earlier. I don't know if there's sort of subsets for the random number generators that we notice, like trends in what I see and trends in what she sees, and they're just not the same. So we both started playing on the same day, and we were using similar. I was using Android, she was using iPhone then. So our playing has been very similar, except for I took a large break, and but there's just been a difference in how that.
Yeah, since day one. I mean, since July 2016. We've both had very different experiences in catching, in finding things, in just general gameplay.
Wolfman, were you able to do some IV hunting with that 300? We found that most were not great. I think I only had one that ended up for Team Mystic is a wonder, so higher than 80%. Did you have many that were over 80?
I think I had 2 that were over 80. I had several that were probably in the 60 to 75 percentile, but most were pretty poor, and all of the shinies were poor IVs. So, IVs for other people watching who aren't Pokemon goers. The IVs are sort of the background statistics of what the Pokemon looks like. So whether it is good at defense, whether it's good at attacking, what its own mechanics internally look like.
So we just got another shiny there. So that was 4th for the day. But the thing about IVs is they're a hidden stat. And I don't know if they've been there for the entire game, but we've only known about them for less than a year.
I don't exactly remember when.
But it's a hidden stat. So if you hit the appraise button on your Pokemon menu, you will get an informant. And it's different depending on what team you're on. The language is different. And based on that language, you can get a feel for about where that Pokemon's individual variables are. And so we both play on Team Mystic, so we have the same language there. And if you're not using a third-party app that sort of chunks that for you, you have to pay attention to that language, develop a feel for what is what. So Is a Wonder tells you that all of the IVs are in the top 20% of possible IVs. So we would call that 80%. And if you're using a third-party app that either pops that information over or a spreadsheet or something, it can tell you a range. There's actually known lists of what the IVs are and how they're set up. So if you really wanted to, you could print those out or look at them on a screen and kind of cross them off and end up with what the individual variables for a Pokemon are. So the thing is, especially if you watch the Pokemon Trainer videos, Nick, on YouTube, which they're great, he has 2 in-depth videos on IVs, and you should definitely go watch those if that's something you're interested in. Yeah, the Trainer Tips channel. And basically, he goes through and does them by hand and shows you exactly how to do that. But, spoiler alert for that particular video, if you have 2 Pokemon who are both powered up the entirety of their spectrum, and one has all 0s on the 3 IV stats, and one has all 15s, so the lowest and the highest, their max CP spread is only a difference of like 8%. So if you're really interested in getting the top combat ready Pokemon for gyms and raids, then maybe that 8% really matters to you. If it doesn't, it's kind of a time suck to go in there and do all the accounting for all the Pokemon you've caught, or at least all the ones that are valuable for Pokemon battling. So that just may not be a part of the game that you enjoy. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, eventually, Niantic will just show us those stats. That would make life significantly easier.
87 percentile is pretty good for that, for all of the Chikoritas I found.
Yeah, I don't think I had any that high. I haven't actually popped them in. I think the one that I use most often is called Pokegenie. I haven't used Calci or Calci IV, but I see a lot of other people who use that. Mm-hmm. What I like about Pokegenie is it basically does a screen capture information, so it limits the amount that you have to enter, and it's not actually interacting with the app directly, so it shouldn't violate any terms of service. It's just basically automating the process of looking at the thing and determining what the parts are. So it looks like it should. Some of the apps got banned because, like previously, the mapping apps that would map out where Pokemon go, where Pokemon are, and those things were banned for violating terms of service. And Niantic and the Pokemon Company definitely care about that. So the ones that simply look at screen data, I can't see how that would be a possible violation. So those are the ones that I'm using.
I will say that Pokegenie is much better on Android because it can look at the screen data and pull from that. Whereas if you're an iOS user, you have to take a screenshot and then manually enter all of the appraisal information for that Pokemon into the separate app. So it is not as user-friendly, but if you're committed to that, you're willing to do it anyway. But it is much nicer on Android to be able to click a button and know immediately.
But there definitely are privacy concerns with any app that can read the screen data. So you definitely would probably not want to have that up and say, do your online banking. Of course, with any app like Pokemon Go that's doing location-based data and anything that's looking at the screen, you're basically turning over lots and lots, potentially, of personal information. And that's a choice that hopefully everyone makes consciously, but people make either way.
That's true. Man, there's that Ghastly. There have been a lot of Ghastlies lately, both in research and or field research tasks as rewards and in the wild. Noticing some of the Generation 1 stuff that's come about, Ghastly has been super common. I find myself scrolling through my Pokedex, finding not hundreds, but several Ghastlies right in a row, just because they take up so much of the screen. You basically want to catch it just to get rid of it off your map.
80 to 90 range is great, Wolfman. I only had one that was as a wonder. Everything else was got my attention for Team Mystic. So that's 69 to 79-ish, somewhere in there. I'll poke some of those higher ones into an IV calculator later and figure out what the best ones are. Mm-hmm. But at this point, I haven't even traded back any of the 300 that we caught. I have Alt 2. I'm trying to save the other ones so I can power those two up. And then we'll see what goes from there. I may have to chuck a bunch of them into the wood chipper for candy.
I transferred tons and tons. Quite a few before I had even checked IVs. So then after I went through my first horde, I started appraising some of the higher CP ones, favoriting those, and then getting rid of some of the others that I knew were poor IVs after that first initial batch. And then I continued to go through those so that I could evolve as many with Frenzy Plant as I could throughout the event. But I only did that, I think, 2 or 3 times. So within that, we were talking earlier, I'm pretty sure I got something like 600 Chikorita candies using some pin apps, of course. But that's quite a lot.
So this area by the waterfront is definitely good for community events. So before I was catching this Chikorita, if you could see there were 4 in a cluster right there. And so I think the most that I ever saw in one spot today, I think we call it sort of the tri-Pokespot stops, where there were, I think, 7 at one time. I'm not actually sure how long a tick is in the game for the software to kick over and respawn Pokemon. If anyone knows in the chat how long a tick is for the game for it to do respawns and repopulate Pokemon, I would be interested in finding that out.
I think it's a couple minutes because it doesn't repopulate often unless you are continuously moving and fetching new data in the area.
But I think that if you're moving, you're basically moving into new sectors. So
yeah, sure.
We know that Pokemon Go uses OpenStreetMaps to pull data, and that their OpenStreetMaps data is frozen from 2015, so that Pokemon Go players don't go and tweak the information, maybe providing bad information to get better Pokemon information. And again, this is another thing that's talked about in the Pokemon Trainer videos, which you should totally go watch. They're really good.
And they pulled some of that from a former application. What was that app called?
Oh, Ingress. So
Ingress.
Their cellular data came from Ingress, which was Niantic's first game, which was also a lot of fun, where you, what are now Pokestops were then portals, and they could be super close together. So you could have them 5 feet apart. Pokemon Go is not that way. That pulls back to the OpenStreetMaps we were talking about. So they took all of the data from Niantic, not all the data, sorry. They took most of the portal data, and those became the original Pokestops. But then eventually they started using OpenStreetMaps. And OpenStreetMaps has a grid system, and so as you scale down and get to smaller and smaller grids, they have pretty hard and fast rules about how many Pokestops and gyms can be in a grid of a given size. And that keeps the problem that Ingress had, where you might have like 7 portals in literally a 60-foot area. And so you could, build these little tiny territories that your team would control. There were 2 teams at the time rather than the 3 we have for Pokemon. So that we know that they use OpenStreetMap data and that they use those grids. So I would think that what happens is when you move into a different grid, you're actually getting a new respawn chunk of data. So I guess the information that I actually want is what size is the grid and what time does it take for that to flip over to get new Pokemon just in that grid.
There's your Chikorita flying away.
Yeah, so that was the first one. So we were outside of a parking garage here, but that was the first one that I had attempts to, flee. So at first we were talking about, was there like 100% catch rate for the day? Because most of us had not seen any attempts to flee. But then after this point in the day, it was happening with increased regularity.
Yeah.
But still fewer than 20 all day.
By that point in time, I had probably 3 fly or, run away. But later on in the event, I started to run away looking for shinies. So that's a little bit harder for me to determine. Yeah. Because I have to say, I do shiny check. So on days like today, I was catching a whole lot, but after I had gotten a solid base of candy and Chikoritas, checking IV spreads and whatnot, I started shiny checking.
So when she says shiny checking, so if you're looking at the map here and you can see the Pokemon that are on the screen, you can't tell shinies from regular simply by looking at them from this screen. If you tap on them as if you're going to catch them, that's when you get the first information about whether that Pokemon is going to be shiny or not. And if you have basically no intention of catching that one and you just want to tap on it to check and see whether it's shiny, that would be a shiny check.
Yeah.
So here I'm scrolling through the list of catches for the day. So that was easily looked like probably 20 rows, 30. So that was a chunk of Chikorita.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing here is, if you've not been down by the hotel, if you're from Morgantown, there used to be stairs that go up to those, but they're currently under construction. So we had to find a stairwell, come up into a parking garage, and then go out a pedestrian bridge to get to what should have just been a single short staircase.
So your little avatar looks like he's marching on himself.
Yeah, so me walking in circles there, or dancing around is...
Or maybe you were just dancing and you don't want to admit it.
I definitely was doing a happy dance for...
Who thinks Kevin was dancing? I think Kevin was dancing.
Probably. So earlier I'd actually had to re-up the eggs. So this is the second set of eggs, incense, and stardust. So the stardust is a consumable item which you can purchase or get for coins, which you win in gyms from having Pokemon there for a certain period of time. Stardust gives you 50%, an additional 50% for whatever the stardust reward is for whatever you're doing. So it's just, a 0.5 plus. The incense increases the rate at which you interact with wild Pokemon, and the egg gives you double XP. But we have a 3 XP event, so this is a total of 6 XP, which was giving us a range of about 900 to 1200 XP for each caught Pokemon. Mm-hmm. So as the game progresses, the level system is a little bit strange. So 50% of the game's playtime occurs between level 37 and level 40, and I'm at level 33. So if you look at the Sylph Road, it will kind of tell you actually where you are on that chart. So at level 33 of 40, I'm about 20% of the way through the level grind. So I need 1 million experience just in this level to level up to 34. I needed about 250,000 at the beginning of the day, which I didn't quite get, but I will definitely pick up tomorrow. I think I'm within 50 or 60,000 of leveling up. I'd have to go check. Mm-hmm. But the level grind is serious. So when you first start playing, you level up really fast, and definitely like grabs that reward mechanism.
Feels
like,
really
level
good.
2, level 3, level 4, and then you get to like level 16, and it requires a bit more work, but you're still going fast. So like 16 through 20, that can happen in 1 or 2 days. And then by the time you're into the 30s, there's another pumpkin spice Chikorita. By the time you get into the 30s, the grind is on, and it's, trying to catch every single Pokemon and then chuck it in the wood chipper for candies. Every single XP buff that you can get, going to raids, throwing on the eggs, and it is a long and slow grind.
I remember coming to my first 1 million XP to level up, and it felt like the level was going to just take forever. I think it maybe took me a couple weeks. But now that I'm sitting at level 37, it's taking me 2.5 million to level up to 38.
So this was actually my first of the
really?
third form.
Yeah. Ah, that's exciting!
So this was my first Meganium, and he was shiny. And also would have the special move set that was from the community day today.
Frenzy plant. We got the words right on that.
Sharknado plant.
No, it's not Sharknado plant. We'd have to watch a bad movie for that.
Yeah.
And by bad movie, I mean it's just really bad. It's not worth your time.
I actually haven't seen Sharknado.
I've watched part of it, and I decided to call it quits.
So this is that area where there are 3 stops within a short area. So we were a little bit lagging behind from the main group at this point, so I needed to stop and catch the Chikorita that were here and then hit those stops. And then there actually happened to be a Starbucks nearby. Not yet a sponsor. Hint, hint.
Pumpkin Spice Chikorita, though.
And so the organizer of the event actually comes out and says, hey, there's a shiny Chikorita in there. You just have to go in and buy a pumpkin spice latte. And I will definitely hashtag pumpkin flavored everything for October. So I skirted right in there. And I indeed did find a shiny Chikorita. And so every person who actually did go into the store and purchase a pumpkin spice latte did end up with a shiny Chikorita.
Is that true, or are they just saying it even if they went in and didn't find one? Like, is it everybody who went in there found a pumpkin spice Chikorita?
I mean, I'm an N of 1, but I went in there and I ordered a pumpkin spice latte, and the tall one, like the biggest one, and I came out with a spicy Chikorita.
I don't know, man. I don't know. See, I was waiting outside because he offered to get one for me, not knowing, I didn't know that there was a special pumpkin spice Chikorita for purchasing a pumpkin spice, but I was sitting outside waiting for him and had no shinies, so no. I will leave the theory there.
I bought one, found a shiny, so.
I was busy working up the magic for the possibility of doing a trade for shiny Bulbasaur, since I missed the shiny Bulbasaur event earlier on this year. She said she had several laying around, so I'm happy to do a trade and take that off of their hands.
Yeah, I don't think I have a shiny Bulbasaur either.
I don't. They're super cute. With the little top fluff and being yellow. I think that might be Ivysaur that has the yellow. Anyway. What do we have on the chat?
Oh, just thumbs up for pumpkin spice lattes.
What's happening in the gameplay? More Chikorita.
Yeah, I was just checking out to see how much time I had left on the egg, incense, and stardust, and we have about 12 minutes on that batch. I know twice I let them lapse for a short period of time because I forgot about them. So at least they were all on the same rate. Sometime they're usually on the same rate. They're usually 30 minutes. But occasionally, for special events, they'll go for an hour. Mm-hmm. And at that point, when the buffs respawn at different rates, is when it's really easy to forget about them. So in addition to it being Chikorita Community Day, we're in this Ultra Rewards period. And so a bunch of stuff that we haven't seen for a long time is back and in force. So typically, the Voltorb, which is the large Pokeball-looking Pokemon,
looks just like this Pokeball.
Yeah, we're pretty thin on the ground. I think I'd only seen 2 ever before the Ultra Rewards period began. And now, like, they're so common that after I've evolved everything I need to, that I'm oftentimes not even catching them. But
only for this time period. So they are the original Pokemon Go Pokemon, the Gen 1s, if you're in the loop. So those Gen 1 Pokemon were quite common until probably, I think, November of that first year. No, maybe it was much later. Anyway, when the next generation came out, all of those Gen 1 Pokemon sort of slid to the background. And then when Gen 3 came out, they were quite uncommon, most of them being quite rare unless you hatch them in an egg or otherwise. So now, as part of the rewards, they released an infographic that said something to the effect of your Generation 1 Pokemon are going to be here for a limited time, so have fun, sort of hinting and plotting that maybe there's some larger scheme afoot, I think, but it's kind of hard to tell because we've only seen some of those Generation 1 Pokemon, like this red flame here is Ponyta, and that Voltorb Pokeball guy. So those ones are super common right now, but I think as we come to the end of this event, those will go away very quickly. Maybe prepping for something else. I don't know if anybody else is looking for a new generation release or not.
There are no vowels in your name, so I will say hi, Bert. How are you? Welcome to the stream. We're looking through some Pokemon Go video footage from today, the Chikorita Community Day event. And we're most of the way through this video. So I didn't record the entire day because after this period, we hopped in the car for a bit and to travel to other places. And so I definitely didn't want to have any video recording or anything going on while we were in the car. We do have later on, there was a Dark Matter Ditto promo at the end, so there will be some additional footage at the end of us walking through a Walmart parking lot, catching all the Ditto that we can find. That was a teaser of some sort, and exactly what it means is not clear. So it looks like there's going to be an entirely new Pokemon that doesn't have a precursor to any of the games that came out, that will be released for Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu. And the current thought is they were teasing that here in Pokemon Go today. So when we get to that, that will be kind of an interesting thing to look at.
Nice on the 15 catches, Bert.
Nice. Are those shinies or are those regulars?
And if you did catch any shinies, how many? Because those are always exciting.
Yeah, we were definitely shiny hunting today. I think between the two of us, we probably had 500 to 600 total Chikoritas. But
we definitely heard a couple different times good hunting. That was sort of the common theme. Nice, 15 shinies?
Oh, nice.
Wow,
that's
good
awesome.
work.
Yeah, I ended up with 7, she ended up with 8, but 15 is amazing. Where about in the world were you playing today? Are you playing Pokemon Go right now?
Yes, there's a Bulbasaur right here.
That's some meta Pokemon Go streaming going on right there.
Meta Pokemon Go. There's a Bulbasaur I'm working on right here.
Okay. Yeah, so we're playing in Morgantown, West Virginia. We definitely had a pretty large community day event going. I think there were 10 of us, 12 of us.
Just in our small group, yeah.
Yeah, just in our small group. But we saw 5 other groups of 5 or more at least.
I would say probably 40 people we saw throughout our time on just a small rail trail, going back and forth. And you know when you spot another goer, like you just know.
Yeah, definitely a pokeception going on there, Richard.
It's always happening. You never stop, really.
Although the Pokemon kick might be different than it is in the film. It might just be more like a long-term addiction. So what we're here actually is I'm actually headed into the Starbucks to get drinks for the day. And so there's a few Pokemon that we're going, and the joke was if you go in there for pumpkin spice latte, you might find a pumpkin spice Chikorita, which I did.
There it is. No great IVs or anything, but still shiny.
Yeah.
Bert has a Grimer. Ooh, a shiny Grimer? That's awesome. They look super cool.
I haven't even seen one.
I do really like the Alolan Grimer, but the shiny one looks awesome as well.
Yeah, actually, I caught, 10 of the Alolan Grimers before I ever saw any of the regular ones. So I was just doing some quick cursory IV checks there on that shiny Pokemon to see what we were looking at. Not great, but just typical. Most of the Chikorita that we looked at today were not great. I only had one that was over 80% IV, which for Team Mystic speak is a wonder. The others were, not great.
I love the little vines. I think she's so cute. She's so adorable.
Are those like tails, or like where are those coming from?
I'm not really sure. I kind of think they're little tentacles or like little plant vines, but I have no idea where they come from, and I'm kind of afraid to ask because she's a nice lady. So, I don't want to be improper and ask her where her tentacles come from because that's not nice. But she's adorable.
All the pieces for a joke are there. Someone just has to put it together.
That's not my job.
So this is definitely going to be the Pumpkin Spice Chikorita.
PS.
Typing is hard.
Okay, let's try again. Number 2, PS Chikorita. Okay.
Yep, that's my Pumpkin Spice Chikorita caught in the Starbucks.
Aww. Such a cutie.
A pumpkin ale would be decent. I could go for a pumpkin ale. I think we actually have some downstairs.
Ooh, pumpkin ale. It's exciting. Pumpkin everything.
So we're also actually going to play some serious Pokemon Go tomorrow. We're getting together with another group, and we're going to play for some Mewtwo raids.
Yay.
As part of the Ultra Rewards period, what used to be solely an EX raid, which were a special subset of raids that you had to get invited tickets to get to, which you acquired by going to those eligible Pokestops frequently. So,
or by raiding at those gyms, right. Commonly, whether it's a big raid or just spending a lot of time active there with your badge. That's how they deciphered the breakdown of the invites there from different tiers of, I think, no badge, bronze badge, which is like just the next step up, silver, and gold was a breakdown across. You can find that, I think, on the Silph Road or on Reddit, the breakdown on X raids. But you had to have some prior experience there. So those X raids were just devoted to Mewtwo at the beginning, and you had to get a special invite in your app, which both of us got 2, but we were only able to attend one of those. But now...
So now, that used to be the only way to get a Mewtwo, and they've since changed that. There's going to be a new EX raid Pokemon, which is...
Deoxys.
And Mewtwo, for this
like
period,
DNA.
Is way more common at level 5 raids. So we're going to get together with the group tomorrow and try to catch some Mewtwo. The Mewtwo from the Ultra Rewards period, however, have a different moveset than the legacy ones from the EX raids. So
Shadow Ball is a special charged move, and what was the other one? It wasn't
Hyper Beam.
Hyper Beam? Okay. I couldn't remember. Because I know some of the other ones, somebody was talking about Ice Beam, I believe, being a move that they got. But those 2 are exclusives to the X-Raid Mewtwo as a way to honor whatever it is that people got when they were invited to those X-Raids. But now, with this new DNA Pokemon, Deoxys, you can invite a friend with you to the raid if you get a pass. So that's kind of exciting and new because it includes some people that maybe never would have gotten an invite or people who aren't able to get out to gyms frequently.
So we were talking earlier that urban or suburban and rural players have like a different subset of problems when playing Pokemon Go. And one of those is those EX raids. So if you don't have EX raid eligible gyms, which is determined by a combination of that data from OpenStreetMaps and a few other things, then you're just never going to get one of those. So in the last day where we had an event where people came up, we had a player who came all the way from Logan County, West Virginia, which is in the central part of the state. So they drove in from Logan to play with us in Morgantown because it was for the Legendary Birds weekend, because they just didn't have any eligible gyms anywhere near them. So that is a bummer, and I'm not sure, that seems like kind of a hard problem because they're currently tied to this level of gym, and I'm not sure what Niantic can do to get those players more access to it. I also love the Chibi. So the little me icon that you can see on the gameplay screen, it is me throwing some polyhedral D20 dice, were Chibis that some of us had made from an artist on Twitter, and I can drop a link to that Twitter handle later after we get back from the chat. But she does custom requests, and so that's me in an LPGWV shirt throwing some polyhedral dice, and yeah, I love it also.
So back to the perks for this special time period. We have a lot of perks happening right now, and especially over the summer. It has been a huge summer for rewards, for new Pokemon or old Pokemon that we haven't seen in a long time. Old Pokemon bosses like Moltres, Articuno, Zapdos, sort of legendary Pokemon now in public battles or public raids for longer periods of time, for longer weekends, etc. This has been a crazy summer for Pokemon Go.
Pikachus with hats.
Pikachus with hats and sunglasses. We've had
Squirtle Squad.
We've had Squirtle Squad Squirtles, which is really fun to say fast. So Squirtles with sunglasses. We've had Pikachus with sunglasses, Pikachus with sunglasses and hats, which is a common theme, Pikachus with hats. I could show you the scroll of Pikachus with hats that I have. But all of these events have special things and acquire special Pokemon from them. So it's really cool to get to be part of all of those events and collect them. Even though by the end of the summer Pikachu thing, everybody's like, oh god, not another Pikachu with a hat.
Actually, that must have ended. When did it? Because I haven't seen
it in
quite a while.
It ended at the end of July, I believe.
No, we were still catching them in August.
I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah, hold on.
When was the last time we caught?
Let me scroll through my Pikachus. Let's see. I can show you my Pikachu list here, so, well, you can't see them. Let's count. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 25, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 32 Pikachus or Raichus currently, mostly with different hats. Let's see.
Is that set by recent?
No, because I would have to scroll for a while. The last Pikachus that I saved were at the end of July, it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a crazy summer for Pokemon Go. So Pokemon Go had its 2-year anniversary at the beginning of July. And so partly it's been in celebration of that, and I think also an attempt to woo older players who may have fallen by the wayside back into the game, which definitely has been effective. So it has just been a crazy summer. There's Community Day every month, but there's also been special things going on constantly since late June.
Mm-hmm. We've seen new forms of old Pokemon, so like the Alolan forms, you'll hear people say. We've seen the implementation of gift giving to other trainers that you could add as friends. We've seen new forms of Pokemon like hats and sunglasses types. We've seen new shinies of other Pokemon. We've seen new raid bosses. We've seen reintroduction of legendaries. What else has there been?
Well, I was just thinking, hats off to Niantic. So after they implemented the ability to trade gifts and be friends with other trainers, which is something people have wanted, more social interaction without the ability to kind of maybe creepily follow them around for a location-based game. So, good job at finding a balance there. But people complained, as people are wont to do, that it's difficult to enter in a 12-digit number for your friend. And people said, man, can't that just be a QR code? That would make life so much easier. And they implemented that. So people have asked for a QR code and the ability to scan them, and they did that, and they were really responsive to it. So maybe now, hopefully, we'll get a slider bar from the friends list.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we had just rated the day prior to them releasing the QR code thing, and we had mentioned the QR thing. So I'm not saying that, Niantic's listening, but, Niantic might be listening.
If you are, slider bar on the friends list.
Slider bar on the friends list, please.
But yeah, they've been really, really responsive to that. So people give Niantic a lot of crap for the game, which is free to play and a lot of fun.
A lot of glitches. It happens.
Yeah, there are glitches, but the game's, it's decent, it's fun. And I think that overall, having played both Ingress and Pokemon Go, that I think Pokemon Go is a better playing experience than Ingress was.
Yeah.
The one thing I liked about Ingress that Pokemon Go doesn't have is the ability to look at an official offline out-of-game map, not offline, but out-of-game map on a computer and plan stuff out. So if I want to meet with a group of people and plan routes, you have to look at a third-party place like the Sylph Road that has nest maps, and you have to use that, or maybe scroll around in your map, which is not easy to do, and plan your routes. So Ingress had a map that you could use, and you could go to any part of the world. You could search it by zip code. You could search it by address. I mean, it was really, really responsive. You could save things. It was basically a Google Maps overlay, just like the game, and it was just an interface through Google Maps for the game. And that would be a feature that I would like to see ported over to Pokemon Go, at least for planning purposes.
I was watching your little dude and watching the gym, so I got a little distracted, sorry.
No, it's all right. So yeah, we had a really decent day at Community Day. Most of our playing was here down by the waterfront, and then we eventually moved over to some of the parks around Morgantown.
That gym became yellow under our watch?
Well, that was when we were standing there that we were like feeding it berries, and we were talking about throwing, because we both play on the blue team, Team Mystic, and then it flipped over to yellow. So Team Instinct flipped that gym kind of while we were standing there. So the group we were playing with was a mixture of teams, and they happened to take that gym while we weren't watching.
Yeah. We kind of thought maybe we would let them have it for a few minutes and then take it back. But then we ended up leaving anyway, so we just left it yellow.
Yeah. So at this point, we were getting ready to peel off from the main group and kind of head to other parts of town. So this was as far towards the Westover Bridge as we got, and then we decided to head back towards the Lock and Dam. But yeah, this is a great spot, especially for community days. If you're looking for places in Morgantown, I mean, you can see just the nest of Pokestops. They're on the top left of the screen there. Most of them are running with lures, which increase Pokemon spawn rates, and it is definitely a decent place for community day.
And more importantly, for today's particular experience...
Hey, if you're using battery saving mode and you're recording your screen, don't do that.
But for today's particular experience of Community Day, it was also a college football game day. And so town was extremely crowded, and it was better to just get away from all of that and find a place where you could just Pokemon in peace without interrupting somebody's drunken shenanigans. So we found this place to be desirable.
If you've never been to Morgantown, West Virginia, the official religion here is Mountaineer football.
And burning couches.
And, well, yeah, there's less of that now. They don't like it. But, yeah, occasionally we like to burn a couch or two in celebration or sadness. Doesn't really matter. But today was a Mountaineer football game. So that kind of community actually landed, like, right in the sweet spot where traffic wasn't awful. So we actually had a fine day getting around town. Most of that was just prior to the game, where everyone's kind of already where they're going to be, and during the game, and then we actually made it home before the game was over. So, yeah, it wasn't bad. Sometimes traveling through Morgantown on a football game day is something that you could make like a really intense movie out of.
Yeah.
Michael Bay explosions.
Be really sad and awful. Long periods of just sitting in your car thinking about how long your life has been spent in this car. But anyway.
Were you catching any many other non-Chikorita Pokemon throughout the day?
No. So with exception, I did catch a Magmar for part of a field research reward. That I don't feel upset about because I wanted to free up my field research for the next couple days so that I could get scheduled to get my Suicune, I don't know how to pronounce it, get the new Pokemon for October. So I wanted to free up all my field research. Anyway, the other Pokemon with exception that I caught were things like Squirtles, Bulbasaurs, Charmanders, sort of those ones that are essential battle Pokemon that you always need candy for. So if it was something like a Voltorb, I know that that's not going to be particularly effective for battles, so I didn't bother catching it. But if it's something like a Charmander, and I know that I can use a Charizard, fire type, in a battle, I'm going to catch those consistently regardless. Plus, I had a Lucky Eggon and Star Piece, so I'm already getting the perks. I might as well catch it.
I picked up a couple of others while we were there. I had that Celebi, so I finished the Celebi quest earlier in the stream. So if you popped in after that, you may want to flip back and see that later. I definitely got, I think, at least one Charmander while we were out, and a couple other things here and there. But I was mostly on a Chikorita catching quest as well.
Yeah. There was some lull. So if we were in a particular area, like you'll see on the map there, if we're walking in between stops, I was catching other things too. So while I had an instance on, other stuff was showing up even if Chikorita wasn't. So I wanted to go ahead and optimize that time of catching for the perks, because the XP leveling up game is real, the struggle is real. That 2.5 mil comes long.
I don't know if you saw this. I threw a Pokeball at the Chikorita. It was entirely stationary.
No.
And I missed. But then I gave it a Nanap berry as if it had moved, but it didn't. I just missed it and then threw a follow-up.
All right, then.
So, yeah.
Sometimes...
I don't know if I can trick myself into thinking that was the Chikorita's fault rather than my own.
At least you're honest. Now I'm like watching the physics of you actually throwing a ball and seeing how you loop.
Yeah, definitely. So it depends on the play. Like sometimes it's just like one quick loop for me to throw, but other times like I need a wind up. I was having this recurring error for the last two major events where I could not throw a Pokeball into the top third of the screen. It didn't matter what was going on. It was like it was hitting a hard ceiling right around the top third mark. And even if I was releasing, so as you kind of spin the Pokeball, you've got like a track that it can take. And if you release it higher up versus lower on the screen, it goes kind of further away. So the Pokemon can be closer to you or further away. And as that happens, you have to kind of throw it differently. But
I didn't have that experience.
I was having this hard problem where I could not toss, so all the flying legendary birds were driving me insane. But it turned out to be a problem that people were having all across the world.
So I'm curious if any of you watching had this experience that Kevin had, because I didn't have it, and all I could see was his terrible frustration in the midst of trying to throw balls at special legendary birds. But finding people on Reddit, that's a super common theme. I just didn't have any experience with that.
Yeah, that's where at first I thought it was like a me problem, that like I was just missing the aim. But then I saw on Reddit that a lot of people were having the same thing. So Wolfman said that it happened on Moltres Day.
Oh no,
as well.
bummer. Were you able to catch any on Moltres Day? While we're waiting for that.
Yeah. I
know that you had a lot of trouble a couple different times.
On 2 or 3 separate occasions, and it was incredibly frustrating. So all I had to do is if a legendary bird was in the top third of the screen, I just had to wait for it to come back down to a spot where I was able to throw it. But so there were times where the whole group was ready to move on, and I was standing there just like waiting.
So Wolfman got 1 normal and 1 shiny on.
A 50% shiny rate's pretty decent.
That's true for Moltres Day. That's not bad.
Hey there, Hydro Boss 120. So we're just looking at some Pokemon Go footage from today, from the Chikorita Community Day. So we've I caught 7 shinies, she caught 8. Together we have about 500 or 600 Chikorita from today.
And we're only about 5 hours outside of Community Day, so yeah. 5 hours after.
We were just talking about a recurring problem that some players have had with being able to throw Pokeballs into the top third of the screen, especially for flying Pokemon. Well, we'd be happy to help you out. So a core part of the game, it's location based, so you have to move around a little bit, walk around, or drive really slowly, but that's dangerous, so don't do that.
And so
get out, walk around, meet some people. There's Pokestops, so you can visit those, catch Pokemon, get items, and if you go to an event like a Chikorita Community Day, then you can have increased chance to catch shiny Pokemon, which are pretty and rare. Not pretty rare, but pretty and rare.
Bummer.
Definitely requires data. If you live in a larger city, though, there may be free Wi-Fi in the downtown areas, or if you've got a friend with data, specifically with an iPhone, they can do a Wi-Fi hotspot, and you can piggyback through playing.
Yes, so Wi-Fi in your public areas is extremely important. Plus, in most of those places, there will be Pokestops also. So if you're at a coffee shop that has Wi-Fi, hop on the Wi-Fi and plug those stops. You can catch lots of stuff there. While we were international in Scotland and Ireland, we were playing solely on Wi-Fi, and we caught a ton of stuff. So it is possible to play on Wi-Fi. You just will have to be more strategic in your work.
Yeah, just have to hunt those down. So Wolfman is asking about the Nut Ditto. So there's we started seeing them actually around 10:30 a.m. Around where we were at. It was reports of them. I didn't see any of that early. I saw one before we started playing, and then we played through Community Day, and shortly after. So we'll actually see some of that in this video.
You want to explain what that is, though?
Yeah. So all of the Pokemon that you interact with in the game have come from the previous Pokemon games for Game Boy and etc. And yeah, Hydro Boss. That's a special day that's just for Chikoritas, and so that was just for this 3-hour window. So that rate is definitely going to change for you.
So back to Nut Ditto.
So back to the Nut Ditto. The current thought that I'm seeing most is that will be a yet to be released Pokemon for what will be Gen 8 for the Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu game. So if you saw this thing, it looked like a Ditto on the bottom and like a nut of nuts and bolts on top. And you would see them in groups, you'd throw a Pokeball at it, catch it, and it would become a Ditto. So the current thought that I've seen is that people suspect that is a Gen 8 Pokemon to be released later this November.
But some other conclusions, I think possibly, some have mentioned that it's Kecleon, that it may turn back into a Kecleon, which, if I'm not mistaken, is currently in the Pokedex but unavailable. So there are some hints that it could be that, or that it is a new form of Ditto. I've also seen that one, which I don't like that one as much because that seems kind of boring. But who was it, the press VP or...
Yeah, so the head of global marketing for the Pokemon Company and Niantic tweeted about it, right? So if they're tweeting about it, it's not an accident.
Totally intentional.
So we can pretty much assume that they've got something going on. I'm saving them. I have no indication that this will happen, but I kind of think it would be a neat thing if they changed back into something later on. That's never happened for anything else that I know.
But now I just have like 20 extra Dittos sitting alongside waiting for that. So conspiracy theories are wide and there. I don't know what to do with all this information because it just started happening like in the last 24 hours. So this is all new and fresh and exciting.
We do know that when Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu come out, you will be able to transfer Pokemon from that game into Pokemon Go and vice versa. So maybe those Ditto will do something interesting in that game.
So what's special about these guys, we've never seen this before, this new Ditto guy. We don't even know what it's called. So if you pull it up the first time and it shows as an unknown Pokemon, the assessment of it, its CP, as you can see on the screen there, just says question marks. Its name just says question marks. So you know absolutely nothing about this Pokemon. You have to just throw a ball at it and try and catch it. But with this unknown Pokemon for everyone, every single time that you click on one, it still shows unknown. It doesn't show you a name, nothing. So we have absolutely no information other than it just showed up as a new Ditto. Which Ditto is an old Pokemon. So it's kind of cool to get this new bit of information because we haven't seen anything new like this since the Gen 3 Pokemon release or since the new Celebi quest. So this is exciting news to be landing on.
Yeah, so every other Pokemon has a predecessor from the game. That's not true for this Nut Ditto. We're getting
the weird hexagon,
a sneak peek from the weird hexagon creature. And so at first people thought if they just saw it on the nearby map at the bottom, that maybe it was an unknown Pokemon. And so that was what I first saw. Hey, is this going to be an unknown?
Like the official Pokemon that's named Unknown.
Correct. From Pokemon
Gen
Crystal.
2.
Yeah, Gen 2. So that's what people thought at first, but not the case. So this portion of the gameplay, I'm going through, so I hadn't done any IV checking. So I'm going through basically and trying to quickly see if there are any which are suitable for evolving. So if you're not familiar with the stats of Pokemon, you have CP at top, which is generally their power rating. But there's something called IVs, which are individual variables, and it's a hidden stat. What you have to do is do this appraise function that I'm doing here and get this text-based information. I'm actually only looking at one piece of that, the first thing here, and then I'm scrolling through the rest. I'm looking for Is a Wonder, which is the highest tier category for Team Mystic, and that means that the IVs, the hidden stat, are going to be in the top 20%, so 80% or above, and that's what I'm looking for to see. So that one that I just passed, the W, and then I've come across one other one while I'm doing this. So that's what's happening now. So it's not an overly exciting portion of the game. It's kind of this record keeping that isn't fun to do. The same thing is true for the other teams, Hydra Boss. It's just that the verbiage is different. I'm not sure if you
I'm looking it up here.
She's going to check and see what the exact verbiage is. So they give you several pieces of information. The first will tell you a general quality. Then it will tell you the highest of the IVs, of which there are 3. And it will... I'm blanking on what the IV stats are.
Defense?
Defense, HP, and attack. So it will tell you the highest one. So if attack is high, well, it'll say HP. If it tell you it's matched equally by, that will tell you that the two things are the same. And then it shows you if matched equally, and there's 3, that all 3 are the same. So what you actually want if you're Team Blue is a wonder, HP, attack, and defense equally by, and then you also have something that will show you the scale on the IV, and so exceeds her measurement will tell you that it's the highest category. That means it's 100% IVs. The IV is not a core part of the game. It's like, if imagine a swimming pool of playing Pokemon Go. If you're at the spot where you're just standing on the stairs getting into the shallow end to play, you can totally ignore IVs. It only makes an 8% difference in the total combat efficacy, so it's definitely not something to worry overly about. It's just an 8% spread. But if you've been playing the game for a while and you're kind of running out of things to be interested in, finding like the tip-top tier of a given Pokemon, can be fun.
So for the red team, for Team Valor, some of the phrases might be, if it's 80% to 100% in the very top tier of Pokemon, your little guy who comes up in the bottom corner there would say something like, overall, your Pokemon simply amazes me. It can accomplish anything. If it's, let's see, stat range, if it is blown away by particular stats like attack, it'll say something like, I'm blown away by its attack stats, or it's got excellent stats. And so for Valor, the little person, Candela, I think, also comments on size as well. So if you have a particularly chubby Pokemon, or if you've got a really tiny one, it'll say, your Pokemon's gigantic, or your Pokemon is so tiny, I almost didn't notice it. But each of those phrases is different from yellow to blue to red. So
as far as we know, the size of the Pokemon is currently irrelevant, but they do continually point it out. So that suggests that it may matter
there's
at some point.
Something there.
It just doesn't currently matter as far as we know.
At least for our gameplay. Yeah. I mean, it probably does have some relation to the hidden IVs, but currently playing, it doesn't have much factorage.
Yeah, so the Community Day, which you saw, the Community Day is just for Chikorita, and they will be less common as it goes on. Oh, Wolfman said it only matters when dodging in the gym.
Ah, that makes sense.
So do smaller Pokemon dodge more quickly or more successfully? Dunsparce, I'm not quite sure.
I think he means your little
chibi
chibi guy.
Oh, okay. So that's not for Twitch chat. That is part of the native game recording software that is standard on modern Samsung phones. So if you're in the Samsung game accessories, you can choose to show nothing, you can choose to show an image, or you can choose to show whatever your front-facing camera is doing. But I assumed you guys didn't want to look up my nose for an hour and a half, so I just opted for this image.
But Wolfman does say that the size matters for dodging, so the smaller will probably dodge much faster. So something like one of these Chikoritas would move much faster when dodging an attack versus something gigantic like a Snorlax that's probably just gonna flop on over. So that makes a lot of sense. I've obviously don't do a whole lot of dodging in battles. I usually just use a big gym bro and put them in there and hope their biceps will hold the test of time.
Hey Mario, welcome to the chat. We're looking at some footage from today from Pokemon Go, the Chikorita Community Day. So thanks for joining in.
Hydra Boss is asking a question. So in regard to the strong Pokemon, that would be something about, let's see, probably, we're not as familiar with Red Team since we're both Mystic.
Right, once you pick a team, that choice is currently frozen. Niantic and Pokemon Company have talked about allowing one switch, but that's not currently possible. So once you pick one, you're stuck with it. So we don't see it very often.
In looking it up on, I think I'm on Ranked Boost right now, the website. They say that if your Pokemon is a strong one, you should be proud. it'll say the quote, overall, your Chikorita is a strong Pokemon. You should be proud. Then it's in the 67th to 79th percentile, so the second one down. It varies accordingly. The third lowest tier then is overall your Chikorita is a decent Pokemon, meaning it's 51 to 66%. So those are the different 3 levels that will put you in the different percentiles. Sorry if that's confusing. I would suggest looking it up, though, on an article where it can spell all of that out for you. That's very helpful.
Also, Hydra Boss, if you hop over to, once the stream is finished, to YouTube and you look up Pokemon Trainer,
Trainer Tips.
Oh, sorry, Trainer Tips. The Pokemon trainer there, Nick, has excellent videos. He has 2 videos on IVs that lay it all out for all 3 of the teams and explains it super well, better than we could do off the cuff here. So that's definitely something you want to go and probably subscribe to. The one thing that I do want to mention, though, is if you have 2 Pokemon and you've powered them up all the way at the same level, and one has 0, 0, 0 IVs and the other has 15, 15, 15, it's only an 8% spread in CP. So unless finding those ones is really fun for you, I wouldn't really worry about it.
Really.
If you enjoy hunting for that really particular rare thing, so like as part of an inside joke, I'm trying to find 6 100% IV Pidgeys. And that's just something that I'm enjoying doing.
He wants to call it the Pidgey Patrol, so that he can, live video himself playing with 6 Pidgeys against a Moltres. I think it's ridiculous,
I sense a little bit of judgment there.
Yeah, there's totally judgment.
So whatever part of the game that you enjoy, that's what you should be doing. And if it's not the IV hunting, then find some other part of the game. So it's shiny hunting, if it's filling out your Pokedex, there's a huge number of things that you can do. We're going to finish up here probably in the next half hour, but we'll be back on future days with more footage. Yeah. But of course the videos are on Twitch for 14 days, and then eventually they'll get kicked over to a YouTube channel, although that's not currently.
I was kind of hoping we would get to your Nut Ditto footage, lack of better term, question mark Ditto. I don't know what people are calling it.
So I'm currently scrolling through all of the Chikorita that we caught today.
So did you catch Nut Ditto this morning? Would it be in your
I did. I got one.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if I go that far down into it. It would be before those Chanseys, because that's what I traded the guy for from the Scottish Pokemon.
Right. Hey, there we are.
So this is we took a break and we decided to do a raid. I think it's the Magikarp raid.
It might be Magikarp. We did Magikarp and a Charmander raid as the event progressed, because we were a little Chikorita out for a minute.
Yeah, well, we definitely would appreciate the follow. Thanks, Hydra Boss. Thanks for checking in, and we'll check you later.
Hope you enjoy.
So I mentioned the Pidgey Patrol, and I decided to run my current Pidgey Patrol for a try for this Magikarp raid.
I had no prior knowledge to this, so this is new for me. I just saw a Pidgey on the other side of the screen and went, what the heck?
So this started out, so as you can see, I'm keeping track of the IVs as part of the name there, so you can see the spread of those Pidgeys. I still haven't found 100% IV Pidgey, but I'm looking for them. So this started out as an inside joke among some of the groups that we raid with, where someone was like, we were just doing awful. We couldn't feed someone. So I was like, I'm just going to toss a Pidgey in there. And then someone's like, we could all toss a Pidgey in there. And I was like, I'll throw a Pidgey in there. So like 4 of us just threw a Pidgey in this legendary raid and, just got totally crushed. And so someone's like, yeah, we could be the Pidgey Patrol. And I'm like, I can commit to a bit, so I'm in for that. So I now have the Pidgey Patrol, and at least once in a community day, I like to roll out the Pidgey Patrol that I'm working with. So this is a Magikarp raid. She has no idea that I'm about to throw 6 Pidgeys into this Magikarp raid. So we're about to jump in and finish this raid real quick. So if you haven't done a raid before, there's like a 120 second countdown to let other people join.
Oh, to
and
wait
there's
in the
currently
lobby.
No way to skip that lobby, even if you're in a private group. So Niantic, again, if you're watching, the ability for a private group to skip the countdown timer once everyone is checked in would be fantastic.
Look at that big old carp.
So any Pokemon that you get from a raid battle will generally have higher IVs than you would see them otherwise. So as you can see here, I am tapping furiously on Pidgey, and now I'm using a charge move.
Ooh, look at that!
This guy's about to go down though.
You got a big old dragon move for that Pidgey.
But it only took me 2 Pidgeys to help you with your Aggron there.
That's true. My Aggron's doing all the heavy lifting there, you can see.
Hey, this Pidgey is pulling his own weight, which is not much.
Yeah, not at all. Look at that Magikarp.
Actually, this is, I think, the first stream of the Pidgey Patrol.
Ah!
So that's exciting. So when you defeat raid bosses, you get additional rewards there, and then a chance to catch that raid boss. And depending on team contributions, you get additional of these special raid balls to use. So you don't have to use any of your regular Pokeballs or Great Balls or Ultra Balls. You have this subset, and then you also get golden raspberries.
You used a golden raz on this Magikarp?
Yep. You don't know me.
I do.
Which makes it easier to catch that. But I did throw 4 of these raid balls at and just totally missed them. So there's 3. And
I'm
this is
totally
4.
judging you right now.
There we go. So
That's awesome. So these special golden razzes are super helpful and effective, but on a Pokemon like Magikarp that is a 1-star bottom tier the barrel raid, I would have just used a pinup.
It's a wonder.
Yeah.
This is attack exceed calculations. So this is an above 80% IV Magikarp.
Yeah,
which
but you
would be
didn't
an
know
excellent
that.
candidate for a Gyarados later on.
Yes, but I used a pinup on that and got twice the candy for the same wonder Pokemon. Just saying.
That was an excellent curveball, by the way.
Ooh, look at you.
So you have this aiming circle that gets smaller when you're tossing Pokeballs, and at the smallest level, when that circle is, it's an excellent throw. And if you add a curveball, you can see you get additional experience for throwing a curveball and throwing a neat, great, and excellent throw. So if you get those together, and you're using an egg, and you're at an extra...
Good, great, excellent. Good throw. Yeah, there's no neat throw. I would
nice.
like that.
It says called nice.
Nice.
Nice, great, and excellent. So here we're getting 6x multipliers for that experience points, and practicing for those throws is definitely something you want to work on.
Questions. So the channel was Trainer Tips. Nick on YouTube, his channel is Trainer Tips. Go find him. But JB, we are not spoofing. We are actually in that park.
So the video is recorded earlier today in Community Day, because you can see all the Chikorita that are hanging out here. This is our local town. To stream live from the phone takes 2 phones and a PC, and I just don't have the setup to do both. So it's early recorded game footage, and then we're looking at it now and discussing the gameplay. So no. I'm answering another question in the chat.
So speaking of useless gym bros, I put in my slacking, which I don't usually do, just because I know I'm not going to use it in another raid. I'll put it in a gym, but most of the time it's terribly ineffective, so it's not a great Pokemon. It's basically just to fill out your Pokedex.
So one of the things that you can do when you're interacting with gyms, if you can't put a Pokemon in and it's your team, you can feed them berries to heal them a little bit from the battle, and they'll stay in longer. So the purpose of being in the gym is that you can get 50 coins per day. That's a max, but not a minimum. It's only a maximum, and you can use those coins to purchase things in the store. So if you don't actually want to pay actual money into the game to play, you can put Pokemon in gyms and get coins that way. And so that's just helping out other people on your team.
We're at the footage for Nut Ditto.
So this is the special teaser release from the day. These, I've seen them called Dark Matter Dittos. So it's a Pokemon that has no precedent in the previous games. Mm-hmm. And it looks like a Ditto on the bottom and a nut as nuts and bolts on top. Once you catch it, it turns into a Ditto. So,
you'll see this consistently. Some people have reported that it turns into a Chikorita, but it seems that was for them right at the end of Chikorita's spawning. So as these are showing up, it's at the 30 minutes at the conclusion of the Chikorita event. So theories are that some of those people were just seeing leftover Chikorita. I don't know. I didn't see that. All of mine turned into Ditto. So
I only saw
it's hard to tell.
Hydro Boss, I would search for the videos on IVs, if that's the thing that you were interested in. He does have a lot of videos. I would look at some of the more recent ones because the game has changed a lot in the last 2 years. So some of the early videos, he might talk about like buffing gyms. That's not a thing anymore, so that's not useful information for you. So I would look for recent things that you're interested in, that probably within the last 6 months. So Jay says they all turned into Ditto for him as well. So I didn't see any.
Hanging out Pokemon. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see any that turned into anything other than the Ditto as well.
But it is curious, and I said this earlier, it is curious that the names consistently had question marks. So typically, your first time with a particular Pokemon, you would see those question marks, and then the next time you encounter it, it goes away. Not so for this Ditto. So that is extremely curious. And I totally think Niantic's up to something. Niantic, if you're listening again, because that's the common theme, please be something really cool. Please be something awesome for us players. We really love it. These new pieces are awesome, and I really want something cool and fun.
Yeah, I'm holding on to them just because this is an unprecedented thing in the game, so it might have an unprecedented end. So I'm just going to hold on to them just in case. So typically you can transfer Pokemon back to the professor, or as I tend to say, toss in the wood chipper for candies back. And there's nothing to do with Ditto candies. There's not an evolutionary stage in the current lineup of Pokemon. So there's no reason to trade those in for candies. I have the space for storage, so I'm just going to hold on to them for a while. So yeah, that was our footage from Chikorita Community Day and the special worldwide teaser.
And the Pumpkin Spice Chikorita Shinies.
Yep, the Pumpkin Spice Chikoritas. So yeah, thanks for tuning into the channel, guys. If you'd like to come back in, we're going to do some Mewtwo raids tomorrow, so we'll probably talk about that as well. So come back in. I'm LPGWV Kevin, and I'm a member of the LPGWV team, so you can follow us all on Twitch. It's my wife, Heather. And thanks for joining us for the evening, guys. All of you in the chat, thanks for interacting with us today, and thanks for hanging out. Night.